today's topic, which I hope you don't find too boring. It's about a best practice scenario for pathing in tsAdmin. It is a topic that I've done quite a few times in training, both in Vegas and in Melbourne, and people are possibly sick of it. On the other hand, when I asked for suggestions for topics, two of you mentioned this actual topic, and it was surprising because those two people were what I'd consider experienced users. So obviously there's still a call for it. And during that period of time, another customer who I consider an experienced user wrote to me with a question, not directly about this, but which showed me that, hey, they needed some help with pathing in tsAdmin as well. So I think it's a worthwhile topic to revisit, especially in this environment. And we will work through some examples and talk about possible best practice, keeping in mind that there's no one way of skinning this cat. There are many ways, and we will talk about some of them and have a discussion about what might apply in the best manner for you. So in general terms, in tsAdmin, we can set five paths. Images and templates are the two main ones. Images is easier, as we'll see, than templates, easier to get your head around with images. And then I've lumped graphics, backgrounds, and auxiliary files, paths for those, together. And we probably won't talk about them at all on their own, because once we've done images and once we've done templates especially, we'll be out of time and your head will be exploding with information anyway. And what you will learn, you'll be able to apply to those other ones anyway. And they're far simpler. People don't seem to have a problem with the graphics paths and the backgrounds paths, and a lot of people don't have auxiliary files anymore. They use auxiliary database, so that's not an issue either. So when I was considering this and preparing, at this point I was going to jump straight into tsAdmin and start talking about paths and start talking about pitfalls and suggestions. But I realized can't really do that straight off, because before we begin, we need to talk a little bit about tsAdmin and some best practice there. tsAdmin, as the name implies, Time Zone Administrator, is an administrator's program. It's not meant for everybody in your organization. Now, sure, if you're a one-man person, that's a moot point. If you're a small organization, that's probably still a moot point. But really, it shouldn't be used by everybody. It's meant for the main guy or guys or a couple of people in your organization, because what you do in tsAdmin, as you know, has a global effect. It affects everything in your database. It affects everybody. So you don't want just anybody going in and playing in there, because there will be consequences which could be catastrophic. So you want to restrict or limit who uses tsAdmin. How do you do that? Look, I think the best way is to simply tell people, hey, you're not allowed to use that program. And that's probably going to be enough. By and large, I think your staff will listen to what you tell them to do. And if you tell them, don't launch tsAdmin, don't do anything in there, that'll be fine, usually. If you want, you can delete tsAdmin from their computer. You can't uninstall it, you just go into program files and delete the exe. And if you want help on how to do that, we can show you where it is to delete that file, then they wouldn't be able to launch it. If you really know what you're doing, you can limit their privileges in MySQL through the users options. That's advanced users only, and I don't think any of you really should be playing with that. But if you really know your SQL, you can grant different people different permissions to different tables, which will lock people out of certain tables and doing certain things, so they only have read privileges, etc. That's not something we're going to help you with, because that is a long piece of string for us, because different people want different privileges and different combinations, and it's not something we can do. And if something goes wrong, we don't want to have that blame. So easiest thing to do is just tell people that you don't want in tsAdmin, not to use it. If you really worry about it, delete it from their computer. And tsAdmin, although you can launch multiple copies of it, it really isn't multi-user. No problem if someone's got it open just to look at stuff while someone else is doing things in it, but you don't want two people working in it at once because they could potentially write over each other and cause problems. Again, if someone's working on packages and offers, and someone else might be working on fields, yeah, even that I don't like, because fields can be season specific and so can your offers. So really it's not multi-user. Have just one tsAdmin going on one computer, that should be it. If you need to launch it somewhere else to look up something, that's okay, but I wouldn't have two people submitting changes simultaneously. So, having said that about tsAdmin, do we launch straight into now and launching it and talk about the paths, which is the topic of this webinar. Best practice for image paths is where I'm going to start. And that's where I was going to start, but I thought no, because what we do in tsAdmin with respect to paths is going to depend on our season, workspace and accounts. So if we're going to talk about a best practice for pathing, we need to begin by talking about a best practice, or at least a practice for season, workspace and account. What's the best way of setting those up, or how do we set those up, and what do they even mean? So let me launch a tsAdmin, and we will talk a little bit about season, workspaces and accounts before we go too much further. Okay, so seasons, workspaces and accounts are effectively just tags. They're really just, we could call them red, green and blue. They're just a way of you organizing your jobs into some logical collection. We call them seasons, workspaces and accounts. Workspaces we just brought over from T&J World because we had workspaces there. Seasons seem a logical way of grouping your jobs, maybe chronologically, so that's why we called seasons. Accounts is a little bit different, and it's mainly used by labs. But they really just are ways of grouping like jobs. Now, do you need to use them at all, seasons, workspaces and accounts? No, you don't, but I suggest you use at least one of them. And if you're going to use just one of them, that would be seasons. And a lot of people do that. The only one they will use is seasons. And by making a season, here we've got chronological seasons. So this is obviously for the North American market. We've got fall 08 through to fall 19, spring 08 through to spring 19. We've also called a season for our portraits, a season for Christmas. The reason I suggest having at least one category, either seasons, workspaces or accounts, is it just makes it easier down the road to grab like jobs together. It makes it easier to name your jobs because you could have a similar named job in lots of different seasons without getting them mixed up. It makes it easier then for archiving purposes, and there's lots of things we can then do subsequently by having our jobs grouped by seasons. And as you're about to see, that includes your pathing for images and templates. And for a lot of people, that's all. If you're going to do just one of those groupings, I would suggest it would be seasons. TS Portal, if you go back to webinar number 1, you saw that you could load jobs just for one particular season. It's useful. What you call them is up to you. I'd make the code small. The description can be as big as you like. So have at least one of these things. Most people do not have seasons, workspaces and accounts. You see seasons and workspaces, if I just click between them, the column headers are exactly the same. Code, description, notes is active. So seasons and workspace are basically the same thing. We're just two different names for the same sort of labeling. Do people use workspaces in combination with seasons? Yeah, some people do, because they may wish to break these jobs down further. They may, for a given season, they may shoot schools and sports. So they may have a workspace for schools and another one for sports, or whatever the case may be. You can break it down further if you wish. Keeping in mind, just because you can do something here doesn't mean you have to. Other people may have a different workspace, to subdivide their seasons according to a district or an area that they photograph. But usually it's a breakdown of the season according to the type of photography you're doing in that season. So let's say in the Australian scenario, you've got a 2019 season, and then you could have a workspace that is schools, teams, dances, communions, etc. In North America, you could have church directories and whatever, and break it down that way. Of course, the alternative is you just make another season. Instead of having a church directory, for example, a church directory workspace, you could just have another season in here, calling it church directory, and you'd have church directories 19, church directories 18, etc. And again, that's probably simpler, less confusion, less combinations of things. Up to you how you do that. I just want to get over to you that you should have at least one of these things: seasons, workspaces, accounts. If you're just going to have one, I would suggest that is seasons. Now, there are some creative uses, however. For example, with workspaces, you could do something like, for people who use iOS, you could have a pre-order workspace and a fulfill workspace. Okay? So it's a way of keeping track of your jobs. The jobs that are not online don't have you wouldn't give them a workspace at all. Once you upload them and they're earmarked as pre-order, you change that job to the workspace of pre-order. And once the job is then uploaded for fulfill, you change its workspace to fulfill. And it's just an easy way then to look at what jobs you've got online, what jobs are up for fulfill, what jobs are up for pre-order. Just a creative use of workspace that you may not have thought about. So no workspace at all in this example would mean job's not even online. Pre-order means it's up for pre-orders. Fulfill means it's up for fulfill. And then when you go file open in Neopack, you can go to the pre-order workspace, for example, and see all the jobs that are earmarked for pre-order. Yeah, a simple way of doing that. Another maybe creative use of workspaces could be something like this. Back to school, because you know how you're going to deliver them. You could make a workspace according to the state of the job in your lab, in your organization. You could have, for example, a workspace for data entry. So when a job is started, it doesn't have a workspace at all. The first step for you might be data entry, so that becomes, you put it to the data entry workspace. Then you may have the next step could be image editing and all the cropping and stuff. The person who's does the image editing changes the job's workspace to the image editing workspace. Then it's easy to see that job is at the image editing stage. You could have another workspace which is at the proofing stage. So you'd have a workspace called proofing, and then another one called printing, for example. And so as the job moves to different stages of its development, fulfillment, you change its workspace, and it does nothing. We're not going to path according to it or anything like that, other than give you a tracking mechanism of where that job is in your workflow. So it might be something you want to consider. Karen says, we use workspaces to separate bulk print jobs. Sort of what I said. Going back to school from post out print going to customer means you can filter easily in fulfill when printing. There you go. Accounts tend to be used mainly for labs. You see the headings for accounts are different. And normally an account would be a lab setting up an account for each of their photographers. So we could have AP for Acme Photography, and so forth. We could put in all the photographers that we handle in Timestone. We create an account for them if we're a lab. And it's very useful with iOS because we can put the email addresses for them in at the account level and their tax rate. And when you upload the job, it uses these without you having to fill them in tsiOS. And same with the tax rate, so it pre-fills some stuff. And the account code also doubles up. It's what we call a provider code in iOS. So if a lab's hosting in iOS for several photographers, we match the photographer's site with their account code, provider code, which is a security safety measure. So if a customer has a key for Acme Photo and he tries to use it in Vogue Photos on Vogue Photo site, it won't allow that because we have said for Vogue Photo their provider code is VP, etc. So accounts is a little bit different to seasons and workspaces. It's generally used by labs. So seasons, workspace and accounts. Strictly speaking, not needed, but I would do at least one of them. And if you're going to do one of them, I would suggest seasons and break your jobs up into a chronological order because it'll be easier for us down the line. Once we have seasons, workspace and accounts in place, the whole point is from here on is that we can then organize our images and we can organize our templates according to seasons, workspaces and accounts and some other criteria. Okay. My rule of thumb there, if we're going to take away a best practice, have at least one of them. You probably don't need all three. So we'll start with image paths. Now, with image paths, why do we need to set them at all? Well, that's not a dumb question, because as you know, if I launch Neopack, okay, and go to images mode, if I import images and have that option, remember the actual path of each image. If you always do that, then you really don't need a path in tsAdmin at all, because it will remember where those images came from. And as long as they don't move, and that's the big if, as long as they don't move, Neopack, all the apps will know where to find the image. The path that they came from gets written against that image ID in the database, if you want to get technical, and it's there forever. If that's the case, then in tsAdmin, you don't need anything in the paths at all. And it'll find the images. When does it need to find images? That's important to know when it needs to find images. It needs to find images when you print. If you're printing with without the thumbnail option, that's when it needs to find the original images. When you export, any of the exports, anywhere, and when you're uploading to iOS with tsiOS, it needs to find the images. So if you have that option on, problem solved. You're never going to lose your images, but as long as they don't move from where they are, you're fine, in which case you don't need any paths in tsAdmin. However, in reality, that's not often the case. Again, for a small organization, that may well be the case. You may always put your images on the X drive, import them from there, they're never going to move. If the X drive dies one day and you back up your images and you get a new drive, call it X again, and have the pathing structure exactly the same, and again, it'll find the images. However, there are many circumstances where the path will change. From the location from where you imported from, they could just have come in from a thumb drive or something like that, is no longer there. Then we do need to consider paths. So back to that. So when searching for images in SQL jobs, it will look for that remembered path first. It will, if you had that option checked, it will look in that location first. If it doesn't find them there for whatever reason, it then looks at your pathing structure in tsAdmin. But the first place it looks is the place that they were imported from. Now I'm sort of, you can tell from the tonality of my voice, I'm emphasizing that a little bit, because if the images are still in the original place and in the tsAdmin path, so let's say you've imported them from location X and kept them there, then they've been copied to location Y, and location Y is where your tsAdmin paths point to, okay? And then you think, okay, it's going to use my tsAdmin paths, I'm going to crop, edit, do all my retouching on the images in position Y. When it comes to printing, it's going to grab the images from position X because that's where they originally were imported from, and it looks there first. So you need to keep this slide in mind, that it looks where they came from first, if you had that option checked, the option to remember path. And for that reason, a lot of people uncheck that option straight away. The option in Neopack to remember the image paths, they'll uncheck it and have it always looking at tsAdmin paths. Okay, so keep this in mind. That's the order. Now the next slide, TNJ files. So why have I even bothered with talking about TNJ files in a topic about tsAdmin paths? Because tsAdmin is only for SQL jobs. Because you may still be using TNJ files in the sense that you may be shooting with Capture Post. So you've got TNJ files. You may export to TNJ and then need to re-import a job in. You may be a lab taking in TNJ files. So TNJ file paths are you still need to know about them. And when it's searching for images in TNJs, this is the order that it uses. The remembered path, number one, then any paths you set in the TNJ under file options. Then it will look in the same folder, wherever the TNJ is, it will look at that folder. If it doesn't find them there, it looks in the job name #images folder. So with TNJs, it looks for the images in that order until it finds them. Why is that important? Like I said, you may not even be working directly in the TNJ. If you're importing the TNJ or merging a TNJ, it's the TNJ paths that count at that point. So you've opened a SQL job, you're importing a TNJ into it, or you're importing a TNJ into a SQL job for the first time, and it can't find images. It's not the tsAdmin paths that are at fault, it's the TNJ paths. So whenever you've got a TNJ coming into the database, it's the TNJ paths that count for where the images are. Okay, so keep that one in mind to anybody who's using TNJs. All right, so let's get to some nitty-gritties. This one. Okay, with image paths. Some do's and don'ts. Don't do this. If you find with your image paths in tsAdmin, you've got that sort of structure, talk to me, because it's not a good idea. Here we have set a path for each job. I've just called my jobs job 1 to whatever. Yours will be called whatever, say Crispin's High School, whatever. My job names are job 01, job 02. And you can see these paths are what I would call direct or absolute paths. There's no @codes in them. There's no variability. That means whatever job I open, I could open job 312, it's going to look in this path. It's going to look at number 1. Why wouldn't it? It's just a path. And it's going to look at number 2. It's going to look at number 3. It's going to look through all those paths to find the images that it needs. And to me, that is just insane, because you could be shooting 500 jobs in a season, in a year, each with 1,000 images. What's that, 5 million images? If the images it needs are in the 499th path, it's got to look through, it's got to search through 9, whatever it was, and 400 and a lot. It's got to look through 4,900,000 images before it finds your images that you need for that particular job. So you avoid having direct paths, absolute paths for anything really, but especially for images. Now, if you think you need to, for whatever reason, talk to me and we'll work out why. And I did get an email about this not long ago, which was one of the reasons for prompting this particular webinar. There is another danger, of course, because it's looking at all these paths. There is nothing to stop a job looking at any of those paths. It's entirely possible that you could have the same image in more than one location. Let's say a particular job needs image 300.jpg and you're printing job 20. It starts looking at the top. It will just grab the first 300.jpg it finds, which may not be the right one. You may have a 300.jpg in this path, path 4, but that's a totally wrong image, and you'll end up printing the wrong image. So the idea with image paths is to avoid absolute paths. And the good news with jobs and images is that they're a one-to-one relationship. Unlike templates, where a template you usually use it across many jobs, images you tend to be or are job specific. You don't normally have kids' images in the same image in more than one job. So the solution is, of course, to use add codes. So I'll just bring up another tsAdmin. This one will do, and we do something like this. In fact, what we'll do, I will show you how I suggest having something organized for me anyway. Here I'm on in File Explorer. The server name is Homer. The share name is Vault. I like using Vault. It's a good word. It makes me feel important. And then we've got images. And then in the images folder, we have something called Fall 17, which you can imagine is the season. So I'm just going to grab that part of the path, the first path, if my mouse lets me. Yep, Control C. And going back to tsAdmin. Okay, so that's the first part of the path. My images are on a server called Homer in a share called Vault, and in there is a folder called Images. I will have another folder called Templates, but that's for later on. Then I can do this instead at season code. Okay, oops, I'll put the at in. Okay, that gets me to my particular season for the job I've got open, which might be in the Fall 17 season. Then I can use at plus, which is your friend. At plus substitutes for the name of the currently open job. Okay, so at season code substitutes for the season code for the currently open job. And for a lot of people, and I've seen a lot of established power users, this is all they've got. They've got one path for images. It's pretty much exactly as you see there. Obviously, it's not Homer and Vault, but it'll be their own server name and share name, then at season code, and then at plus. And when you open a job called St. Crispin, the at plus gets replaced with St. Crispin. If it's in the Fall 17 season, at season code gets replaced with Fall 17, and that is the path that particular job will look at, and only that path. So if I go back to File Explorer, all right, but inside my Fall 17 season, or my Fall 17 folder, which Fall 17 is the season code, inside there I would have another folder in here, which is, oh, there we go, which is the job name. So what did I call it? St. Crispin. And that's inside there I put my images. Now for a lot of people here, this is pretty basic stuff, okay? But this is probably, I still believe, the best practice for images, to have them in an at plus folder, the folder name is the job name. Divide it into your seasons as well, so it's just easy to find this year's season, this year's images for St. Crispin versus last year's season for last year's last year's images for St. Crispin. Now, you're probably going to have some objections. You say, oh, but Dino, we shoot with 3 cameras. What do I do? Here's the other rule of thumb you need to remember. The images paths don't look in subfolders. So once we've hit the St. Crispin folder there, if we have more subfolders in here, it's not going to find images in the subfolders. So that is a golden rule you need to remember. With images paths, once the path is resolved to a certain directory, to a certain folder, it doesn't look in subfolders. But you say to me, oh, but I'd like to have my portrait images separate to my groups, for example, my Neo group groups. Well, that's easy. Just do something like this. It doesn't look in subfolders, but you can make it look in subfolders. You can do that and then duplicate that. Yep. And something like that. Okay, so submit that. So path number 1 resolves to, I've got St. Crispin open and it's in the fall 17 season. So path number 1 will go to fall 17, then St. Crispin, and then I've got fixed text. Then it's going to go to the images folder and look at the portrait image and find the portrait image in there. Likewise for path number 2, it goes to the groups subfolder, and that's where you can keep all your groups together. If that's what you want, if you want to keep all your groups together and separate from your portrait images. But Dino, I shoot with 3 cameras. And I would say to you, well, why don't you just put all those images together in the images folder, in the @+ folder or the @+/images folder? And you'll say, no, I really want to keep them separate so that I can grab them all because camera 1 is going to need more retouching or more editing because they're underexposed. Camera 2 is fine. Camera 3 are overexposed. And I need to keep them separate for other parts of my workflow. Well, if you have shot with Capture Post, you can prefix camera 1, camera 2, and camera 3. So even if they are all in the one folder, it's very easy to find all camera 1's images and camera 2's images and camera 3's because they're going to be prefixed accordingly. Many cameras nowadays let you prefix the images as you're shooting, so there's another way of doing it. All that said, so you could put them all in one folder. If you do want to have them in separate folders and keep them that way, if you know that you always, the maximum you're going to shoot is 3 cameras. I'll just get groups for the moment. You could do something like this. Camera 1. Put all camera 1's images in there. Camera 2, camera 3. So even though we don't look into subfolders, you can point your path to the subfolder. There's nothing wrong with doing that. If you shoot with all 3 cameras, you put camera 1's images in this location, in that folder, and all of camera 2's in that, and so forth. If you only ever shoot with 1 camera, for a particular job you only got 1 camera out, you make sure that they go into that folder. And the other 2 will be blank, no harm there. It won't find any images in there. But that would be the pathing structure if you want to keep your images from different cameras separated into different folders. Oh, good question, Sandra. So I'll come back to Sandra. If all images are pathed as such, can TS Portal find all? No, Sandra, if we look at what I've got up there right now, with 3 paths like that, TS Portal wouldn't find all 3. TS Portal, as I've got it at the moment, can only handle 1 path. If we only had 1 path, that'd be fine, because TS Portal now you can put in @codes, so you can have exactly that path number 1, but you can't have path number 2 and path number 3. It doesn't support multiple paths, but it does now support @codes. So if that's an issue, then you need to try and resolve into 1 path here. Have a structure that is 1 path. All right, while I'm here, my training database, you can see I've mucked about with seasons and I've got workspaces for my different types of jobs that I demonstrate. When you are pathing, be it image paths or template paths, which we're coming to, pop them in the star, what I call star up there, star there. Don't do this sort of thing. They're 2017 and virtual groups, and put a path in there in a combination of season and workspace. Especially important with templates, because it just makes it really difficult for you and for us, if we're helping you, to know what the combinations are. You can see if you end up with 10 seasons and half a dozen workspaces, you've got 60 different combinations, and you've got to work through all the different combinations to see which paths apply to the particular job or whatever we're troubleshooting. So the only reason you put a path directly in here, directly by clicking on the season, is to make that path only apply to that season. And we can do that anyway with the season code. So avoid, this is one of those things where just because you can doesn't mean you should, avoid putting paths in combination, directly in the season or directly in the workspace, or a combination of those two. Makes it really awkward to find. Templates. We're going to move on to templates. Okay. Image paths, yeah, just to summarize there. So what I just said, avoid direct job specific paths. At plus, at job name, makes that path conditional to your currently open job, which is what you want. You really want a job to only see the images that belong to that job. That makes obvious sense to me. And remember, subfolders are not searched. That is important, and every now and again we'll get someone who can't find the images when they're printing, and it's because the images are in subfolders, then their path only goes as far as the parent folder. So we move on to the more complex life of template paths and their associated folder structure. The aim with templates is we want to present a job. When you open a job, we want to present it with a workable number of templates. We want to keep that number of templates down to a minimum without having to excessively duplicate your templates. It's really the two extremes, as I'm about to show you, are really easy. It is really easy to have a structure where all jobs see all your templates. Really easy to do that. You have one template path, one folder. You can have subfolders with template paths. Throw all your templates in there. Neopack will always find those templates. Problem is, it's seeing lots of them, and there are consequences of that. It's really easy to do the other extreme. You do like you do with the images. You have @ plus, and that's your only path. And you have a folder for each job, and in there are that job's templates and no more. That's really easy as well. Problem with that is you're going to be duplicating templates for lots and lots of subfolders and lots of jobs. So both of those extremes are not viable, but they both have their place. So the aim of template paths is to have some sort of compromise between those two extremes. So you optimize it so the jobs see the templates it needs to see, maybe a few extras, but without going overboard. So let me show you the extremes. So this job is, have a look at the template path. Which one was it? This one. Okay. Here is the one extreme. I just have one simple path going to my templates, and you can see there's no dynamics about that template path. There's no @codes. It's just going to a fixed location called templates. There's no seasons, workspace accounts. There's no @season code. There's no @plus. There's nothing in that template path which would stop some jobs seeing templates and other jobs seeing them. So there's nothing specific about that path. In other words, all jobs are going to see all the templates that are in this location, and critically, subfolders as well. So compare that to image paths. Template paths do look at subfolders. The templates do look at subfolders. So you can stop a path at a certain parent directory. It will look in any subfolders that are in that parent directory. It will find templates in there as well. So with this structure, here's the job I had opened, and there are advantages of that and disadvantages. One of the disadvantages you didn't see because I opened this job before the meeting started. One of the disadvantages is that the job takes a hell of a long time to open, and it took about 4 minutes because it loaded every single one of my templates. Having done that, there are advantages. If you're a one-man operation, perhaps, and you don't mind waiting that period of time, no one else is going to be modifying templates behind your back, it's pretty good in point-and-click mode. See, they're all my subfolders. The parent directory went to here. There's no templates directory directly in the parent directory, but then all the templates are in subfolders, and it's really easy for an operator in point-and-click mode, for example, to come in here and find the templates he needs. They could be organized by photographer, they could be organized by different job type, etc. Has advantages. That approach has the advantages. The disadvantage is that it's loading lots of templates. And the template report is your friend, is your best friend. So this particular job is looking in all those folders because it looks, there's my path that you saw in tsAdmin, the very first one, that one there. Okay, and then it looks in all the subfolders and subfolders of subfolders. Bottom line is it's seeing 507 templates, and there's consequences of that. One of which is that the job is slow to open. I'll talk briefly about the others in a moment. So let me change. So that's one extreme, and you can see it's easy. One single path in tsAdmin. You have subfolders for your templates, and just throw all the templates in there, and you know the job's always going to see them. Okay. So let me close the job by doing that to that same path. I've now made that path a job sensitive path. Now when I open job 1, it will look only at the templates that are in a subfolder of this parent directory called job 1. And when I open St. Crispin, it will look at St. Crispin, and so on and so forth. And just by doing that, file open, to begin with, it didn't take 4 minutes to open the job now. It only took a matter of seconds, and there are all the templates there. And the template report will vindicate me to show that it is now loading 27 templates, not 500 and something templates. So they're the two extremes. And as I mentioned earlier, I don't think either of those two extremes are viable. We need to come up with a structure that gets us somewhere in between those two things. That's the aim. Now, why do I go on about templates? Because when you do have jobs seeing lots and lots of templates, and I'm talking hundreds or thousands, there are consequences to that, which I've talked about training, and I don't want to go over them all over again. So if you do want to review why template paths are important, go back to YouTube and our channel there and have a look at the two videos that I've marked there. The 2016 training seminar on template efficiency, which talks about this, and also about building templates, about making templates efficient at building them. And again in 2018, last year, we talked about it in a slightly different context. Both of those are worthwhile viewing, and it'll show you the huge benefits that come from having a good template structure so that your jobs don't see too many templates. So we've seen the two extremes. Okay. At extreme left, I'll go political here. At the extreme left, we had all jobs seeing all templates. Over on the right, we have a job seeing only its templates and nothing more. So it's a continuum. Our pathing structure is a continuum. Somewhere along that line is where we're going to try and place ourselves. We want to go over to the right as far as possible, in this case, so that a job sees only its templates, maybe a few more, but without going overboard. So the extreme position of all jobs seeing all templates, as we saw, it's good for point and click. It's great to have all your templates available for you there where you're point and clicking and not having to worry about pathing structure. And it does suit smaller operations. But the job is slow to open. It's really slow in Fulfill because Fulfill is not a job-specific program. You've got lots of orders from lots of different jobs in Fulfill, and each time it's got to load all those templates. And there's lag and instability. But have a look at those YouTube videos for a better explanation about why you want to avoid that situation. At the other extreme, you have a job seeing only its templates, and that gives you the increased performance and increased stability because you're only loading 27 templates. However, it's impractical. It's impractical to have a subfolder of templates just for that job. You may have 500 or 1,000 jobs and 90% of those templates are the same. You don't want to have to duplicate them 900 times. That requires a lot of overhead in maintenance. If you need to make a change, you've got to make it change in 900 places. So we know how to achieve these results. We know how to achieve these extremes. At one end, we use @+. We know @+ substitutes for the job name. So if @+ is in your template path, that job only sees what's in a subfolder that is the same name as the job. At the other end, we don't use any @codes at all. How do we control where we place ourselves on that line? Well, we do that with the other @codes that we have at our disposal. @season code we've already talked about, and it is the obvious one. Now, I've placed that somewhere in the middle. That's arbitrary. I just put it there for symmetry. We don't know where it's going to put you on that line. Now, it could move you to one direction or the other depending on how you shoot. If you're, for example, if you're a school photographer and that's basically all you do in terms of photography, and your job's pretty much, you've made all your templates for a season prior. So for the Northern Hemisphere, you've made your templates for the upcoming season in June, July, August, I guess. In the Southern Hemisphere, you'd do that in December and part of January. And you've got all your templates ready for that particular season. And you make a folder for that season. So fall 19, or in Australia, we'd have 2019 or 2020. Put all your templates in there. And you're a school photographer, and most of your schools use most of those templates. There's not much variation. Everybody's using pretty much the same templates. If that's your workflow, if that's the sort of person you are, then @season code is really good on its own and is going to move you further along that side. You see why? Because all jobs are using pretty much the same templates for that season. So @season code is great. It gets you far less templates than not having it there, and that's what we're aiming for. On the other hand, if you shoot schools as well as teams, as well as churches, as well as communions, Santa portraits, studio portraits, etc., and you've made a season folder as well, and you've put all those templates for those different job types, because your Santa portrait templates are going to be very different to your school templates, which are different to your team templates, which are different to your church directory templates, and you put them all in a season parent folder, and we use that season code in the path, then it's going to get you further to the left. Because when you open a particular job, you could open a school job, you're seeing templates that really belong to the church directories, you're seeing templates that belong to teams and stuff that's not relevant to that job. So the idea where @season code gets you on its own depends on your particular circumstance. So we can, so @season code on that direction is for people who shoot lots of different types of jobs, and those different types of jobs need different templates. And if you lump them all in one season folder, a season code folder, it's still better than having no codes at all, no @codes at all, but we could probably do better. So how do we do better? A really good one, which is a little bit of a well-kept secret until relatively recently, is @offer code. You see, to me, there is a logical link between an offer and templates. If you think about it, let's leave, even if we leave Neo Group and Neo Comp out of it, we just talk about Neopack for the moment. When you make an offer, you make packages, and each package has one or more products. For stuff you do in Neopack, those products relate directly to a template. So for this particular offer, it's looking at this set of templates, whatever that set may be. And that may only be like 30 different templates. If we add Neo Group and Neo Comp templates in there, it may be a little bit more, but generally you don't have lots of comp templates for an offer. It's probably just one comp and one subject block. Same with Neo Group, you've probably only got one template that you're offering in that offer. So @offer code seems to have, in my opinion, a very logical and natural relationship with the templates. So it makes sense, if that's the case for you, it makes sense to organize your templates by offer code. Perhaps still in combination with season code, but to have your templates ultimately organized by their offer. Now, again, that may not work for everybody. You may have lots of different offers with pretty much all the same templates, and maybe what changes in this something very small, maybe one package here and there, maybe a price here and there. And so if you've got lots of different offers, but basically using all the same templates, if you use @offer code, you're not achieving much. You will probably look at a different system for that. But @offer code generally puts you over in the good side, over there where the job sees only the templates it needs. So we basically work through a combination of all those tools that we've got with our template paths. And I've included in there having no @codes at all. That's important. We will still have paths with no @codes, so all jobs see them. We just need to be careful what we put in those paths. And we still will probably use @plus for our job specific templates, and then we use the other @codes in the middle there to narrow it down, to tweak it perfectly for our particular scenario. So let's get cracking on that. Okay, so I pre-entered, because remember I said season code is probably the one you're going to use the most. So I've pre-entered some seasons. So what's the first path we might want to put in? Well, let's handle the extremes first and work our way into the middle. I always like the idea of having a template folder, which I call common, where every job will see those particular templates. And that could be templates that every job needs to see, a simple 8x10, whatever template or templates you think that pretty much all, if not all, but most of your jobs will want to see that particular location. And I would make that not even season specific. We could make that common templates subfolder inside those season folders. However, I like to keep them out of the seasons as well, so that all jobs from all seasons, in case you need to open up an old job, can find them. So I will consider doing this as your first step. Okay, and we'll make a subfolder called common templates. So that's my path. And if I go back to my drive, I've now made a folder in on my template server called common templates. It's sitting there, and in there are some templates that I want all my jobs to see. And notice there was a subfolder as well called scan sheets, which may have my order barcodes and stuff like that. So that is this location. You see it up there in the address bar, Homer, Vault, Templates, Common Templates, and I path to that. Every job's going to see that location, and I'm happy with that. I like the idea of that. I think it's worthwhile having. It's really good too if an operator's working and they need a template for a certain job real quick. They yell out to the template designer who's 10 desks away, say, hey, I don't know, Sophie, I need such and such a template. Can you just throw it in common? I can imagine that conversation. So the template designer makes that template, just throws it in common so that I can use it, the operator can use it. I like the idea of a common templates directory, okay? As long as it's not your only one. So we've done that. We've handled what I call the common templates. Let's handle the other extreme. There may be plenty of jobs where they need their own template. They need a specific template that is for that job and only for that job, and no one else. And you don't want to put it in common because there's a danger of someone else seeing it. You don't want to put it in the in a season subfolder because again, that might be someone else might pick it up accidentally and use it. You don't want to do that. You don't want to pollute the other paths with this template that is only going to be used as a one-off for this one particular job. So the way I would handle that is come back to, we'll put them in the fall 19 season, for example. Okay, have a folder in there called job specific templates, and in there you can have your job specific template. So how do we handle the job specific template? So we want this location, yeah? We want a particular job to look in this location. So let's grab that and make the path. Okay, now what do we need from here? If this was a training seminar, I'd be pausing and waiting for your reply. What we need is, to begin with, we need to take 419 out of there and replace that with @season code. So when we open a job in the 419 season, @season code will be replaced with the word 419. It goes to there, then it goes to a subfolder called job specific templates. And then what do we need? Anyone want to type it in? We want this job to only see the template that I made for it. What do I need to put at the end of this path? @+, yeah. @+. Okay, so let's do that. So there's my job specific templates. Now I had made some. Here we have them. I'm going to Control-C them. Okay, so I've got two folders in my job specific templates directory. One's called Coburg West Primary School, Coburg West PS, and the other one's St. Crispin. And in there will be, hopefully, their own personal template. I've just called them personal template. You can see that? All right, so let's see how we're going. Now, it is important when you're setting this up to keep testing it as you go along. How do you test it? Well, you test it with Neopak, and your best friend in the world is not me. It is the template report. Okay, so we want to go to the Timestone database. And I'm going to open St. Crispin. So I do recommend, when you're building a path structure, to test it with Neopak with each step to make sure you're getting what you think you should be getting, rather than do the whole lot at once and then find it as a problem and you're not sure where to go back to. So the template report is your friend. So help template report. Let's look at the folders only. So this particular job is looking at common templates. Correct, we have a path for common templates, as we saw. It looks at the subfolders. Yes, there was a subfolder called scan sheets in common templates. And then it's looking at this location. We've got St. Crispin open, therefore it looks at St. Crispin. And they're the templates that it sees. It's seeing 24 templates. Now, one test is not a test, so you need to then open another job to make sure that the @+ is doing what you want to do. So the other job I had was Coburg West, my old primary school. And help template report, show folders only. It's seeing common templates and scan sheets. Everybody's going to see that. And now it sees Coburg West as the job specific folder, and in there I'm going to put any templates that are specific for this job, and my specific template was called Coburg West PS Special Template, and there it is, all working swimmingly now. So we've handled our two extremes. We've handled the common templates that every job's going to see, and this is how we handle our job specific templates. Okay, and you make the job specific template inside the season code. Okay, let's take it a bit further. Okay, let's handle most of our templates, which are going to be season specific. It'll be Homer, Vault, templates. Now we want to make them season specific, so at season code. Okay, and we've got that location already. Okay, so Homer, Vault, templates, fall 19. I could put all my fall 19 templates in here. Would I do that? Would I put all my fall 19 templates directly in this location? So let me do that. Okay. So they will be found by the path number 3, which I haven't submitted yet. Let me submit that and see if we can see these together. So we've got our job specific templates, and in there in a subfolder, and in fall 19 directly we've got all these templates. These are the bulk templates that we're going to be using for the season. I'll put into brackets there later just for consistency. Is that okay? Do you think that's okay? Do you think that'll work? Anybody want to give me a yes or a no? This will test your knowledge. So path number 1 we know is going to common templates and its subfolder, hint hint. Path number 2 is going to the fall 19 season, then a subfolder called job specific templates, then the job's particular templates if it's got any. Okay, and why won't it work, Sandra? It'll sort of work. It'll sort of work. But remember, this is the golden rule, the difference between image paths and template paths. Template paths look at subfolders. If you look at path number 3, the one I've just put in, if we stop it there at that season code, yes, it's going to see all these templates that we've put in, the bulk templates we've put in. But remember, it's also going to see the subfolders. So it's going to see anything else we put in, like job-specific templates. So we don't want to stop it there because it will read the subfolders as well. We want to put these templates in their own subfolder and go directly to it. So this is the better approach. Put them all in there. And it's also neater, and I like that. Okay, so the path now becomes and then we put bulk templates. You can call, of course, you can call these anything you want. So you can see where it's looking now. It's looking at common, and it's finding its job specific, and then for a given season, it's also finding the bulk of your templates for that season. Yes, Sandra, correct, because you want to put a stop to how much it sees. Had we not done that, it would have looked in the at season code folder, fall 19, but everything else, all the other subfolders that were in there. And we will quickly test this again. And let me get to Neopack. So file, close, and we'll do St. Crispin this time. You can see it's finding more now. Show folders, that seems to be working. We've got common templates and scan sheets, we've got its job specific ones, and all the other ones for the season, we've put in a folder called bulk templates. Call it what you will. You could call that templates again. season templates. Now we can take this further. You could isolate your templates more than that. I'll close this job because we'll come back to it. You see, you may, a lot of people would prefer to, for example, keep their order headers separate. So you might have them in a subfolder on their own. And if you can spell, that helps. Okay, and submit that. What else? I've seen a lot of people have their package templates in a folder on their own, so they're easier to get to. So we can just have a subfolder in our season path with our template package templates in there. Okay, so we can put, we don't have to do everything with our season code. With at codes, we can use fixed locations with one variable, as we've done here, and it all works. And another very common thing for people to do is they like to isolate their items. So we will call this one service items. Okay, now one of the reasons people isolate their items is they may not want iOS to see them. So they put all their items together in a folder on their own, and then you can make use of this, which we need to talk about, where that path will be used. All means all apps and iOS. The apps only, Neopack, Comp, Group, Data Post, Fulfill, and iOS obviously means tsiOS when you're uploading and online. So you could, for example, make the service items, if you don't want iOS to ever see them, apps only. So the Neopack will use them, and tsiOS won't grab them when it goes to uploading jobs. Now be careful with this. Let's understand one thing. The apps only, if you put apps only, tsIOS won't upload them. So let's keep that in mind. Now, if the job is being printed in Fulfill, you may have another path which is iOS only. For whatever reason, you have templates that are only used for iOS, and you think, okay, that's good, I'll use that for whatever. I've got a set of templates that are only going to be used for iOS, they're never going to be used for paper orders, I'll make it iOS only. Fulfill will see that, but Neopack won't. See, Neopack does not look at the iOS only. So if you've uploaded a job for pre-order and you've got a template path that's iOS only, Neopack won't be able to find those templates. So just be careful with that. Look, in general terms, most people just use all, but I have seen people use apps only to isolate service items, to take them out of the equation. All right, let's finish off, and we'll put these templates in, and then we're going to refine it one more time with offer codes. So go back to here. So we're inside our fall 19 season. I'm going to add a folder for package templates, and got another one for the service items. So you can see how my server, which is in the Windows Explorer window, is relating to my paths. What you're not seeing there, of course, is the common templates, because they're outside of the season. The common templates are in this location, one step out. The rest are season specific. Now it could be that your order headers or your package templates, you don't make them season specific either. You put them out of the season, put them in the common area, in the parent area. That's going to be up to you. So let's open that job again for the penultimate time. See how we're going. You see it's starting to take a little bit longer as it needs to load more templates. Template report is your friend. We're going to show folders only, and you can see the locations it's now looking at, and they relate nicely to the paths, and it's all working. and we're seeing 157 templates. Now you're going to ask me probably, is 157 okay? What sort of number do we aim at? I would put to you that your jobs probably don't need 157 templates. I'd be surprised if you have a job that needs that many. But like I said at the outset, it's a compromise where you place yourself on that line about how much further you take this to limit the number of templates you see. I think ideally you'd want template numbers to be under 100. I think under 200 is fine. Room for improvement, but you may not be able to, you may not be willing to. That's okay. You may not be willing to isolate those templates further by whatever criteria, by perhaps a workspace, by perhaps having more @+ folders, having more job specific folders. I think 500 is starting to get to too many, and over 500 is a no-no. I think over 1,000 is definitely a no-no, and I have seen plenty that are over 1,000, and there are just too many other problems associated with that. So aim for under 100. If you hit under 200, I think that's good. If you're starting to reach 500, I think you need to take action. If you're over 1,000, you definitely need to take action. So how do we narrow this down even further? As Steve mentioned in the chat, and I have mentioned, @offer code seems to be a very good hidden gem. If we close this job, and I'll come back to it for the last time shortly, our bulk templates have got all the templates for that particular season. But what if, for our school season, where we're shooting mainly schools, we have 3 main offers? We really just have 3 offers, and our templates line up pretty well with those 3 offers. So I'm going to delete those. Those templates then got subdivided. Those templates got subdivided. No, I don't know if you noticed then, but when I deleted those templates, Neopack in the background, even though if a job was open, the refreshed and the templates disappeared. You think, oh, that's good. But that's also the bad thing when you've got a lot of templates and you do anything to the templates. Neopack refreshes that list, which can cause Neopack to lock up while that is happening. Okay, so inside my bulk templates, I'm going to put those same templates that I deleted, I had organized according to what? Fall 19 ES, Fall 19 TMS, and Fall 19 SS. Those subfolder names are offer codes. So I've got 3 different offers for my Fall 19 season, and the templates relate pretty much directly, or much more directly, to those 3 offers. So they're the offer codes. So Fall 19 elementary schools, secondary schools, TMS for teams. And then here, I've got the elementary school templates in that directory, the secondary school templates in that one, and then the teams templates in the other one. And of course, I can do this for each of my offers. Then, when in tsAdmin, we need to put in one last criteria. You put in @offer code to that one. So rather than the path stopping at bulk templates and seeing all, whatever it was, 87, 97 templates in bulk templates, they've been subdivided according to the offer that they're in. And we call that particular subfolder, we call that with @offer code. So when I open a job that's in the ES season, it will only see, the ES offer, it will only see the templates that are in the ES subfolder. Let's test that theory. Hope you guys are making me a coffee. St. Crispin. Okay, so if I go to File Properties, this was in the Fall 19 secondary schools offer. So its offer code was Fall 19 SS. And now when we go to the template report, look at the folders. There it is there. Where is it? Bulk templates there. That's the path that's relevant to what the change we just made. So in that particular path, Homer, Vault and templates are fixed text. Fall 19, we got that from @season code because this job is in the Fall 19 season. Bulk templates was fixed text. Fall 19 SS, is the offer code for this particular job. And now we've hit the magic number. See down the bottom? We've got 100 templates instead of whatever it was before, 187. And so that, my friends, we've worked through building up a template structure for this particular circumstance. Your circumstance might be a little bit different or a lot different, but I hope you grasp the tools that you need. Now, of course, if you're a lab, the very obvious change you would make here, I think, is that you often will have this going at the same time. So within a certain season, you put in account code and all these paths become subject to the account, because a photographer A may have a totally different set of templates to photographer B, etc. So labs will tend to use add account code after the season code, or they can do it the other way around. They can have account code first, organize things by account and then per season, but I think it's normally this way around. Season first, so fall 19, and then your next subfolder is going to be a subfolder for each of your accounts, for each of your photographers that you print for, and then within there you have the same structure. So I'm not going to do it for all, but you add at account code in there as well. If you want to take workspaces into account, if you're subdividing your seasons into different types of workspaces, you do it just like we did with add account code. I'm not going to go through all those examples though. So I hope this fancy slide helped you understand. I'm going to use the fancy pointer because I always forget to use that. Yeah, I hope this slide helps you understand the extremes and where we go to. And then if we summarize template paths, the idea is to organize your templates logically with your seasons, workspaces, or accounts, or combinations thereof in mind. Keeping in mind you're probably going to want a path, a location where you can just throw any template in there and all jobs are going to see it. And you're probably going to, at some stage, need to make job-specific templates. So accommodate those with some paths. Use some @codes for the others to limit what your job sees. And test how you're going with the template report. Rule of thumb, aim for 100 or less templates. 200 or less is fine. 500 starts to get a bit of a concern. 1,000 or more is a no-no if that's what your template report is giving you. All right, well that was a bit of a marathon in the end. And are there any questions, or are you absolutely all exhausted? You're welcome, Steve. I hope it's useful. I know for some of them, some of you, this is very old ground because we have done it, but gosh, it comes up so often, indirectly. I don't get questions about it. I don't know if Mark, I might unmute you, or you can unmute yourself, Mark. And Carrie, for that matter, you can unmute yourself. People don't often ask directly about this topic, but the question they ask relates to it, or the problem they've got relates to it. So it is something I think you should master. And then it is a sort of set and forget. Once you've got that structure organized, where is it? It just works again for the next season. You really don't have to change your structure. You just have to make the folders on your server and put the templates in there that you need. You don't have to play around with this. And remember, first rule, I probably should have put that as rule number 0, the first one. Always put them in star. I don't have workspaces accounts, but don't put paths in combinations thereof for no other reason that if we jump on and have to help you, it makes it really hard for us to find the different combinations. We've got to click through them all, especially for me, because I'm sometimes doing it when you guys aren't there out of hours and I can't ask you, which path is the right one. So I've got to click for all the combinations. So, Bob, in tsAdmin we have paths. However, there is also, where'd it go? In tsAdmin we have paths. However, there is also template files in the job under options. Yeah, that file options paths, that is for TNJ only. I think it does say that. I think it says it calls them TNJ. Ryan, so could you theoretically use one template key for multiple ID cards and put them within the... Yeah, Ryan. I didn't go into one of the advantages of this sort of structure and I remember Jacob pointing it out at training, but I did cover it at training, and it's also in those videos. If you go back to look at the training videos from the Vegas one last year, one of the advantages is you can have the same template with the same key in lots of different places, in different seasons or in different jobs. ID card was your example, but only have one product in tsAdmin, one product with one key, that key. But because your path structure is structured in a way that the job only sees one of those ID cards at a time, it doesn't matter that they've got all those different templates have got the same key, because your job only sees one of them and it relates to one product. It means you don't have to put multiple products in tsAdmin, which is a good thing, because that product's object in tsAdmin just grows and grows. Did that answer your question, Ryan? Have a look at the vid. Mark says, didn't know there wax so much about paths. Is wax an acronym that I need to know about? Oh, it was. Okay. All right. Yeah, but keeping the number of products down in tsAdmin is a very useful side effect of a good pathing structure for your templates. You can have the same template key, the same template, let's call it template A, with key A, and that template could be totally different in 10 different places, and it's a totally different looking template, but it's the same key. It just needs one product in tsAdmin, because the job only ever sees one of them. You're not going to get duplicate key problems. All right, so thanks guys. I hope this topic was useful, and we'll see you again in a couple of weeks. Bye for now.